It all started with a sound. Just a tiny clink as I tossed my gym bag into the back seat of my car, something I'd done 100 times before. But that day, that one careless toss sent something small and metallic skittering across the floor mat. I bent down to see what it was, and there it was, a delicate gold earring with a tiny sapphire in the center. Definitely not mine, obviously not something that came with the car, and definitely not my wife's. Emily hasn't worn jewelry in years, not since our daughter was born, and she said she couldn't stand the way earrings got caught in everything. I just stared at it, lying there like a ticking time bomb, glittering in the afternoon sun. My first thought wasn't even suspicion, it was confusion. Maybe it belonged to someone from work. But no one rides in my car except me. I drove straight from the gym to home, mind racing. I didn't say anything to Emily at first. I put the earring in my pocket, trying to calm myself down, telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe it had fallen out of a coworker's bag weeks ago, but I couldn't shake the feeling. That thing felt radioactive in my pocket. And then I started noticing other things, little things. The passenger seat was pushed further back than I ever leave it. There was a faint smell of perfume I didn't recognize. I became obsessed. I vacuumed the entire car, looking for more clues. And that's when I found the second one, a hairpin tucked deep between the seat and the console. Not Emily's. She cuts her hair short, always has. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to my wife and stared at the ceiling, every breath she took sounding like a lie. I needed answers, but I didn't want to accuse her without proof. So I waited. I started tracking everything. Her schedule. My own. The car's mileage. I even checked the Bluetooth history on the car stereo and found a name I didn't recognize. Jade's iPhone. My chest tightened. Who the hell was Jade? I deleted it without telling Emily. I needed to be sure before I said anything. But every time she laughed at my jokes or leaned in to kiss me, it felt like a performance. Like she was pretending to be the person I thought I married. And then about a week later, I saw it. A message pop up on her phone while she was in the shower. Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again. My hands shook as I read it. I took a photo of the screen before it disappeared. I didn't recognize the number, and there was no name saved. My heart pounded so loudly I couldn't hear anything else. She came out of the bathroom, towel in her hair, humming, and smiled at me like everything was normal. I smiled back, but inside something had snapped. I was going to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The next few days were torture. I acted normal, played the part of the loving husband, but every moment felt fake. Every smile she gave me, every kiss on the cheek, every casual, "I love you," felt rehearsed and hollow. I kept thinking about that message. Last night was perfect. The words played on a loop in my head. I tried to figure out when it could have happened. She had gone out with some friends the night before for what she said was a girls' night. I hadn't thought anything of it at the time. But now I couldn't stop replaying every second of that evening, wondering what she was really doing, who she was really with. I couldn't ask her, not yet. I needed more. I started digging through her phone when she was asleep. I knew her passcode. I'd never used it before, but that night I waited until her breathing was deep and even, then unlocked it. I went to her messages first. Nothing. Then her emails, still nothing. But when I checked her recently deleted texts, there it was. Dozens of messages from that same number, all erased, except one thread she must have missed. My breath caught. "Can't stop thinking about you," it read. Another said, "When can we sneak away again?" My stomach turned. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was something ongoing. She had a full-on relationship with someone else. I copied everything. Screenshots, timestamps, even the contact number. I uploaded them to a cloud folder I created just for this, labeled discreetly. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I needed a record. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling again. But this time, I didn't feel panic. I felt cold, numb, focused. I decided to dig deeper. I installed a location tracking app on her phone, subtle, undetectable. I told myself it was the only way I'd know for sure where she was going. I needed to confirm everything. I needed to see it with my own eyes. And 2 nights later, I did. She told me she was going to the grocery store. I watched her icon on the app sit still for 10 minutes before moving again. I knew the route, but it wasn't toward any grocery store. She was heading toward a quiet residential area on the other side of town. My heart started racing, but I stayed calm. I grabbed my keys, followed the route she took. I didn't drive directly behind her. I knew better than that. I waited, then pulled up about half a block away from the address the tracker showed. The lights were dim. Her car was in the driveway. She was inside. I sat there in silence, gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't go to the door. Not yet. I took a photo of her car of the house number of the time. Then I drove home. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. The next morning, she came back like nothing had happened. Kissed me, told me traffic had been awful. I nodded, smiled, said nothing. But inside I was crumbling. The woman I loved, the woman I had built a life with, was leading a double life. And now I had the proof. All I needed was the final piece, who he was. And once I had that, I wasn't sure if I wanted revenge or closure. Or both. I spent the next few days trying to figure out who he was. Whoever this guy was, he had my wife's full attention. He wasn't just a fling. He was someone she texted regularly, someone she met at night, someone she was lying to me about repeatedly without flinching. And that's what ate at me the most, how good she was at it. How easily she smiled. How naturally she laughed with me at dinner while this whole other life sat right there in her phone. I knew the house she went to, but I didn't know who lived there. So I took a personal day off work and went back to that neighborhood. I parked a block away and waited. Around 11 a.m., I saw a man walk out the front door. Mid-30s, fit, wearing a polo and slacks. He looked like the kind of guy who golfed on weekends and wore boat shoes without socks. My stomach turned. I snapped a few photos from the car as he got into his BMW and drove off. I didn't know his name, but I had his face. That evening, I waited until Emily was in the shower, then ran one of the photos through a facial recognition tool I found online. It wasn't perfect, but it gave me a possible match, Daniel Pierce. I found a LinkedIn profile, then a Facebook page. His profile was open. I scrolled through his posts, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. There was Emily, tagged in a group photo from a work charity event. Smiling. Standing right next to him. I clicked the tag. She was under a different name. A maiden name she never used with me. My mind was spinning. Had she created an entirely separate identity? That's when I realized this wasn't just an affair. This was a parallel life. She'd been using her maiden name with him, maybe pretending she wasn't even married. I needed to know how deep this went. So I created a fake profile, messaged Daniel casually, pretending to be someone from a past networking event. We started chatting. It didn't take long for him to open up. He told me he'd been seeing someone special for a few months now. He didn't give her name, but he said she was stuck in a bad marriage and deserved better. My vision blurred with rage. She was telling him that I was the villain, that our marriage was something to escape, that I was the reason she was sneaking around. And he believed her. All of it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my office, staring at the wall, wondering how the hell I'd gotten here. I had no idea how long it had been going on. I thought about confronting her. Part of me wanted to just explode, throw everything in her face. The photos, the texts, the Bluetooth history, the house, the man. But another part of me, the colder, sharper part, wanted to wait. Wanted to catch them in the act. Wanted to see the look on her face when she realized I knew everything. And that's when I made the plan. I would follow her again. I'd wait until they were together. And then I'd knock on the door. I needed to see her face when the lie fell apart. I needed her to know I wasn't blind anymore. And maybe, just maybe, I needed to remind myself that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. The next Saturday, she told me she had a volunteer shift at a local shelter, something she'd never mentioned before. My stomach twisted with suspicion, but I nodded and kissed her goodbye like always. The moment she pulled out of the driveway, I was right behind her. She drove with ease, no rush, no hesitation, as if she had done this 100 times. I followed at a careful distance until we reached that same house. She parked, walked up to the door, and let herself in without even knocking. My chest tightened. This wasn't just casual. She had a key. I waited for an hour before I got out of the car and approached the house. My heart was pounding, my palms slick with sweat, but I needed to see it for myself. I moved to the side of the house, staying low behind some bushes, and peered through the window. There they were on the couch, laughing, her hand on his chest, his arm around her. The intimacy in their body language was undeniable. Then he leaned in and kissed her. Not a peck, not something unsure. It was long, deep, like they were in love. My stomach churned. I backed away before I threw up right there. I got in my car and drove around the corner, parking where I could calm down. My head was spinning, but I knew I needed proof. I pulled out my phone and started recording a video from a distance when they came out later. She looked different somehow, lighter, more relaxed, like she'd dropped the weight of our marriage the second she walked into his arms. They kissed again before she got into her car. I had everything I needed. That night, I didn't speak a word to her. She came home, made some excuse about traffic, showered, and got into bed like nothing had happened. I lay there next to her, watching the ceiling, knowing full well what she had done just hours before. Over the next week, I prepared myself. I backed up everything: texts, location data, photos, videos. I even printed copies and stored them in a folder labeled Truth. And then I did something even more painful. I wrote her a letter. I told her I knew everything. I described the exact moment I followed her, the way she touched him, the way she kissed him. I told her about the fake profile, about Daniel, about the photos, about her lie of a life. I didn't write it in anger. I wrote it with clarity. I told her I deserved better, that I wasn't going to scream or cry. I was just going to leave. Then on Friday, I placed the folder on the kitchen table, left my wedding ring on top, and walked out. I didn't wait for her to get home. I booked a hotel for the night and turned off my phone. I wanted her to come home to silence. I wanted her to feel the cold reality of being caught. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted her to realize she didn't break me. She only freed me. I didn't sleep much that night at the hotel, even though I thought I would feel a sense of peace. Instead, I lay awake in the dark, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and wondering what was going through her mind when she found that folder. Was she scared? Angry? Relieved? I turned my phone back on the next morning and was met with a flood of messages. First came the calls, 8 missed ones in a row, all from her. Then the text started. Please call me. We need to talk. It's not what you think. Please come home. I can explain. The usual. The desperate scramble of someone who'd been caught, trying to manipulate the fallout before it all crumbled. I didn't reply. I spent the morning sitting in a cafe downtown, sipping coffee and thinking about the last few years. Thinking about how many nights I stayed up late with our daughter when she had colic so Emily could sleep. About the anniversary dinners I planned, the house repairs I did without asking for help, the way I always supported her when she wanted to try something new, photography, yoga, even that podcast she never actually started. I wasn't perfect, but I damn well tried. I gave her everything, and she gave someone else the part of her that was supposed to be mine. Around noon, I got an email. Not a text, an email. It was from her with the subject line, "Please read." Against my better judgment, I opened it. It started with the usual. She was sorry, she didn't mean to hurt me, she never stopped loving me. But as I read on, the words shifted. She said she felt trapped in our life, that she missed feeling seen and wanted, that Daniel had given her an escape, that she hadn't planned for it to become serious, but it had. And then came the worst part. She admitted that it had been going on for nearly a year. A full year of deception. A full year of lying to my face, of pretending to be my wife, while she was emotionally and physically giving herself to another man. She ended the email with, "If there's any part of you that wants to fix this, I'm willing to try." That sentence made me laugh out loud in the middle of the cafe. People turned and looked at me like I was crazy. But how else was I supposed to react? Fix this? After what she did? I closed my laptop and left. I didn't respond. That night, I went back to the house, not to see her, but to pack. I waited until I knew she'd be gone, then let myself in with my own key. I had called a buddy from college who lived 2 towns over and asked if I could stay at his place for a few weeks. He didn't ask questions. He just said yes. I grabbed what I needed, clothes, documents, a few personal items, and walked out. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe her an explanation. I was done giving her anything. Later that night, she texted again. "I saw your things are gone. Please, can we talk? Just once." I stared at the screen for a long time. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I thought about all the things I could say, all the pain, the betrayal, the fury. But in the end, I typed only 2 words. "We're done." And I blocked her number. That should have been the end. I should have been able to walk away. But Emily wasn't done. Not by a long shot. A week went by without a single word from Emily. At least not directly. She must have respected the block, or maybe she was giving me space in hopes I'd calm down. But that didn't mean she stayed silent. She reached out to my mom, pretending it was all a misunderstanding. She messaged my sister on Facebook, asking her to talk to me. She even showed up at my friend Jared's place one night, the place I was staying, banging on the door until he told her I wasn't there. I watched from the kitchen, hidden behind the wall, listening as she pleaded with Jared through the screen door. She said things like, "He's the love of my life," and "I made a mistake, but I want to fix it." And then she cried. Loud, deliberate, rehearsed tears. Jared stood firm, told her it wasn't the time or place, and asked her to leave. When the door finally closed behind her, he turned to me and said, "Man, that woman's got some nerve." He wasn't wrong, but I wasn't immune. Even though I knew better, even though the betrayal was fresh and festering, part of me still hurt for her. For us. For what we had and lost. And that weakness was what she was counting on. A few days later, I got a certified letter in the mail. It was from Emily. Inside was a handwritten note and a flash drive. The note said, "If you watch this and still don't want to talk, I'll leave you alone." I should have tossed it. I know I should have. But I didn't. Late that night, after Jared had gone to bed, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop and hit play. It was a video. Emily, sitting on our couch, no makeup, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. Her voice cracked as she spoke, talking about how lost she felt, how alone, how she didn't recognize herself anymore. She talked about Daniel, how it started, how he made her feel important, how she didn't realize how deep she was until it was too late. She claimed they never planned anything beyond the next meeting, that it was never supposed to be permanent, that she ended it the day I found out. She swore she never stopped loving me, swore she'd do anything to earn back my trust. At the end of the video, she said something that hit me harder than I expected. "I forgot who I was without you. But you never forgot who you were without me. And that's why I lost you." I sat there for a long time after it ended. Not because I was moved, but because I realized something. She didn't regret the affair. She regretted being caught. Her entire speech was about her pain, her loneliness, her needs. Not once did she mention what she did to me. What it felt like to watch my world collapse. To see the woman I trusted with my soul strip away every ounce of security I had left. It was all about her. That was when I knew, really knew, there was no going back. Not even for closure. Not even for revenge. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I was just done. I left the flash drive on the counter the next morning and went to look at apartments. I found a small place a few blocks from my job. Nothing fancy, one bedroom, tiny kitchen, creaky floorboards. But it was mine. My space. My fresh start. When I signed the lease, the landlord handed me the keys and said, "Welcome home." I almost cried. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in a long time, I finally felt free. But like I said before, Emily wasn't done. 2 weeks after I moved into my new place, things finally started to feel stable. I wasn't happy exactly, but I was functioning. I went to work. I cooked for myself. I slept better, even though the silence sometimes gnawed at me. I stopped checking Emily's socials. I deleted the apps that let me track her. I was rebuilding myself piece by piece. And then the letter came. Not a text. Not an email. An actual physical letter left under my apartment door. No stamp, no envelope, just a single sheet of paper folded in half. All it said was, "You forgot your heart here. Come get it." No signature. No return address. But I knew her handwriting. And I knew exactly where she meant. I should have thrown it away. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. The next day, I found myself driving back to the old house. The one I swore I'd never return to. Her car wasn't there, which gave me just enough courage to get out. The key still worked. I hadn't turned it in yet. Inside, the place looked exactly like we'd left it. Our wedding photo was still on the mantel. The half-dead plant she loved sat in the kitchen window. And on the dining table was a box. My name was written on the top in bold black marker. I opened it. Inside were small items, things I'd forgotten or didn't even realize I'd left behind. A watch she bought me for our anniversary. My favorite hoodie. A paperback I was halfway through. And underneath it all, a notebook. I opened it and immediately recognized her handwriting again. It was a journal. Every page was dated. Every entry started with my name. Dear Alex. It wasn't just a diary. It was a confession. A breakdown of her thoughts, her guilt, her self-loathing. She wrote about every time she lied. Every excuse she gave. How she watched my face twist in confusion when she gaslit me. How Daniel made her feel powerful, but how I made her feel real. She admitted that being with him was never about love. It was about escape. about feeling like she mattered when everything else in her life felt stagnant. She wrote about the first time she realized she might lose me, and how that terrified her more than anything. It was twisted, honest in the ugliest way. And maybe that's why I couldn't stop reading. When I closed the book, I didn't feel comforted. I felt violated all over again. This wasn't closure. This was a performance. One last manipulation designed to get me to feel something, anything, for her again. As I stood to leave, I saw something else under the table. A framed ultrasound. My heart stopped. I picked it up and stared at the blurry image. A small note was taped to the frame. "It's yours." I swear. I dropped it. Literally dropped it. Like my fingers couldn't even hold on to it. And for a second, I thought I might pass out right there on the floor. Because if that was true, if she was really pregnant, if it really was mine, then nothing was over. Everything had just begun. I couldn't breathe. I sat in my car outside the old house with the ultrasound photo on the passenger seat, staring at it like it might start talking to me. A million thoughts flooded my head. Was she telling the truth? Was this just another way to drag me back into her mess? Why now? Why this? I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. She hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't begged for forgiveness. I thought she had finally let me go. And now this? I drove straight to her office without even thinking. I didn't care how crazy I looked. I needed answers. She wasn't there. Her coworkers gave me awkward stares and mumbled that she was out for the day. I called her phone, no answer. I drove back home, threw the ultrasound photo in a drawer, and tried to forget it. But I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that tiny image. The next morning, I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said. Her voice was quiet, nervous. "Is it true?" I asked. "Are you really pregnant?" There was a pause. Then a whisper. "Yes." "Is it mine?" I demanded. "Yes," she said again, firmer this time. "I'm not lying, Alex. I took a test 2 weeks after you moved out. I wasn't sure how to tell you. I thought about waiting, but then I couldn't. I had to tell you. You have a right to know." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "A right to know? After everything you kept from me?" She started crying. I didn't care. Not then. I told her I wanted proof. I told her to meet me at her OBGYN's office, and I wanted the paperwork. She agreed. We met 2 days later in a sterile waiting room. She looked different, tired, thinner, worn down. For a second, I saw the woman I fell in love with. Then I remembered everything. The doctor confirmed it. She was 8 weeks pregnant. The timeline matched. It could be mine, or it could be his. I asked for a paternity test as soon as it was possible. She didn't argue. Afterward, we sat in the parking lot. She tried to talk, but I wasn't ready. I told her not to call me unless it was about the baby. No more letters. No more guilt trips. No more emotional blackmail. "Do you even want to be a father?" she asked, her voice breaking. I didn't answer right away. I stared out the window, heart racing, throat tight. "I want to be a father," I said slowly. "But not like this." She nodded. I drove away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. When I got home, I opened the drawer and pulled out the ultrasound again. This time, I didn't feel anger. I felt fear. What kind of father would I be if this was true? What kind of damage had already been done? Could I really raise a child with a woman who shattered everything I believed in? I didn't know. I still don't. But one thing was certain. That baby was coming. And whether I was ready or not, everything in my life was about to change again. The days waiting for the paternity test results were the longest of my life. Every morning I woke up hoping the phone wouldn't ring and terrified it would. I kept replaying every moment I shared with her, trying to piece together the truth from the fragments left behind. When the call finally came, my hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. The lab confirmed the baby was mine. I felt numb, overwhelmed by a storm of emotions, shock, guilt, confusion, and even a strange sense of responsibility. I didn't know if I was ready to be a father, especially under these circumstances, but this was my child, and that changed everything. I called her and told her. She cried on the phone, relief flooding her voice. We agreed to meet and talk things through, to figure out what this meant for all of us. Sitting across from her in that small coffee shop, the reality hit me hard. We were connected forever by this tiny life growing inside her. I still felt betrayed, but I couldn't deny the hope rising inside me, that maybe this baby could bring us some kind of healing. I promised to be there no matter what. She smiled through her tears, but I could see the fear in her eyes too. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about a family none of us expected, but one we had to face. As I left the cafe, my phone buzzed with a message from my wife, the one I thought I left behind. "We need to talk," it said. My heart sank. Was this the start of another lie? Or was it a chance for something new? I didn't know. But I did know one thing. Nothing in my life was going back to the way it was before. The truth had shattered everything, and now I had to pick up the pieces and decide what to do next. The baby, the past, the betrayals, they were all tangled up, and the next step was mine to take. After that day at the cafe, everything felt like walking on thin ice. I met with my wife, and we had the hardest conversation of our lives. She confessed that she knew about the baby and the other woman from the start, but was too scared to tell me. The lies had piled up so high, she didn't know how to come clean. I felt anger, betrayal, but also sadness, not just for me, but for the family we lost. I realized that rebuilding trust would take more than apologies. It would take time, honesty, and willingness from both of us. Meanwhile, I stayed involved with the mother of my unborn child, making plans to support her and the baby, even as the pain of the betrayal lingered. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I had to understand all over again. This journey wasn't what I expected, but it forced me to face my fears and redefine what family meant. In the end, the baby brought a complicated hope, a chance to heal broken pieces, or at least try. Life after betrayal is never easy, but sometimes, even in the darkest moments, there's a flicker of light that can lead you forward. This story is about that painful, messy, and hopeful path. Thank you for listening to my truth.